Master Sensei, isn't there something?
One special move I could use against my opponent?
There is one move. Run like hell.
There are blood-crazed zombies outside eating people and turning them into... ninja zombies. Anyone gonna buy me a drink? Master Sensei!
Hello everyone, this is Gruesome Hertzogg's Horror Movie Review. My guest tonight is Bo Buckley. How you doing, Bo?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Wonderful. I just want to say again, thank you for the fun time at Horrifying on Saturday, and it was one hell of a flick, Deaths of the Dead.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out to support the movie and check it out. We really appreciate it, and thanks for doing all the interviews with all of the cast and crew of Dismal and Savage and the other movies that I've been involved with. It's been great. I'm checking out the site and I'm going through, and I didn't realize that you had interviewed Will Triplett, and I know you did Jack a couple of times and Bill Oberst, and I know you've got plans for interviewing Justin, and it's like, wow, eventually we'll get down to the costumer might get an interview. It's great.
Well, I say, yeah, I was talking to Jack quite a few times, and he was giving me some tips, which he's an intelligent man, and I really like Jack a lot. And he says, Scott, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but what you can also do is, how many people actually interview people who are in charge of cinematography or the music,
Right.
So we'll see.
That's good. It's a different take than you're right, most people do not get to hear those people's ideas and thoughts on the movie-making process and their involvement in the movie-making process. And, it's a different bit of information for people rather than the typical director, star, interviews that most people get to hear.
Do you want to mention to the people listening about the release date for Death of the Dead? I should say, how about to go get it?
Well, right now you can pick up a DVD. It hasn't been officially released in terms of being able to pick it up at a Blockbuster or Netflix or seeing it on Showtime or some other type of media. But we do have DVD copies available, which we were selling at Horrifying right after the premiere, which is the first time we'd ever screened it in front of an audience. And so that's only a week old, and now the DVDs are available. If you go to our Facebook fan page for Strange Stuff, which is at facebook.com/strangestuff, you can click on the Shop Now tab, and you can buy your own copy of the DVD, which is great. It's got the feature-length movie. It's got an audio commentary from the director, Gary King, and the star, Christina Rose, which is very funny. I was listening to it the other day for the first time, and they have their own little drinking game going on while they're doing the commentary, and they encourage the people listening to participate. So it's a lot of fun. The whole movie is a lot of fun, and that was the intention going into it. So it's much different from movies that we've done before, like Dismal and Savage. This is complete 180, with most of it being very funny and over the top and silly, as opposed to being sort of your straight horror. And we've actually had a really good reception people have really, really enjoyed it, and even straight horror fans have actually enjoyed it. So I think most people will, and just pick up a copy and check it out, and hopefully your listeners will enjoy it too.
I hope so. But see, you gotta understand something. I was distracted by Dismal, as you know, for the last 3 or 4 months. So I really didn't read about Death of the Dead. So basically, I went into that movie on Saturday, had no idea, what I'm going to be seeing, and my father-in-law was sitting beside me, and my son was on the other side, and my father-in-law starts chuckling. I said, "Look, if he thinks his comedy's funny, then it's funny, because my father-in-law doesn't laugh that quick at something, but I enjoyed it. I mean, after watching it, I'm going to say one scene. I'm not going to say too much about it, but the one scene that I thought was so funny about it is, if you remember, the sensei was trying to teach her how to do the martial arts part, and if, I'm getting that, right? And every time he's doing the moves, and then somebody else is there, that scene was funny. That was that scene. Yeah, the oddball comedy.
That is part of what we went into doing these movies. See, Strange Stuff is a sort of a division of Filmmakers that we developed with Justin and one of our other producing partners, Christopher Cook, who was not at Horrifying, but we basically came up with, Christopher came up with that idea of Strange Stuff, and we sort of molded that into what became the production company that would handle sort of these very silly, over-the-top, fun genre comedy movies, and that was what we intended to do. Is we knew that the budgets were going to be low. We knew that we were going to have some shortcomings, and everything wasn't going to be as perfect for us making those kinds of movies. So what we did is we allowed ourselves to laugh with the audience while we were making it, and that was part of it. The scene that you're referring to, the sensei. It's kind of the movie is kind of a mix between the Karate Kid meets like Night of the Living Dead or 28 Days Later, something like that. And the idea is that this Mr. Miyagi type character, this old aging karate instructor, is teaching his lone student how to do these really cool karate moves, and he demonstrates for her in their dojo, and he does these flips off the wall and does these crazy like dance moves where he's doing backspins and stuff. But the way that we shot and the way that was written in the script was, we're going to add in the double, and we're going to make it so obvious that you can tell it's a double, that's the joke. Where most movies, the stunt double comes in, and you don't know it's a stunt double. That's the point that they're trying to do. But we really wanted to point out that we were using a stunt double in it. So when this guy is, this aging instructor runs and flips off the wall, it's obviously a young 20-something kid in a very, very bad wig, and then when he goes into does the dance moves, it's a black guy who's dancing, and he's also in the same wig. So you can, obviously tell that they're complete different people, but we cut it in between, so it looks like it's the karate instructor played by Jack Abley doing all of the moves, and so that's kind of the joke. And there's other jokes in there where we kind of poke fun at ourselves. We have the boom operator fall into frame, and a couple of scenes, and we have the actors looking at the camera just to, let the audience in on the joke. And, there's a few moments like that where we sort of tell the audience, hey, we know you're there, we know you're watching, and we're laughing right along with you.
Well, at that point that you just talked about, that had me hooked right then and there. I mean, that's
through pretty much everything that we could think of. We wanted to, every page had several jokes on it, and hopefully we were hoping that most of them would stick. And if they didn't, maybe it would go by so fast that perhaps the next one would come along and they would be laughing at that. But what we found was that some people were laughing at the joke before even the punchline, and the audience didn't hear the punchline because they were laughing over. So if that happens, then perhaps people will enjoy the movie 2 and 3 times watching it and learning something else or hearing a new joke because they were laughing at the previous joke and missed the second one or the third one. And so maybe they can get some enjoyment out of it watching it 2 or 3 times. And I think it's an entertaining movie.
It has a Naked Gun feel too.
Yeah, all of those types of movies, those Naked Gun, Airplane, even movies like Scary Movie, things like that, where we were poking fun at other types of movies, poking fun at ourselves as filmmakers. We were inspired by all of that when we went into making these. Even to go into, like, knowing that we're doing low-budget stuff, doing, trauma-type stuff where or Full Moon, where you're really, really low budget and you're sort of, you're just kind of feeding off of that. You're not trying to be so serious that, hey, we're going to make a really scary horror film, or hey, we're going to make, the next greatest zombie film. We realize that it's going to be really tough for us with this kind of budget to do something like that. So let's just make them fun. Let's make them really entertaining. And, if you can see the camera operator's shadow in one of the scenes, or, if you freeze frame during the bus crash scene, there's moments where you can actually see the crew on the outside pushing the bus and trying to rock it. I mean, and it goes by so fast, most people don't notice that, but those are the little things there that in some of the bigger budgeting movies that we've done wouldn't fly. And if we did those types of things, it would just there's no way this is going to happen, and we'd have to shut down. We'd have to try to figure out a new way to shoot it. We'd have to relight everything. And when we shot Death of the Dead, it was like, you know what, the hell with it, just go with it. I mean, this looks good. If anybody's paying attention to that shadow that just fell across her and saying, that must be from the camera guy, then, they're obviously not entertained by the movie at all.
Right.
So, right. Well, we had a little bit of, Justin and myself and many of the people that were involved in it, Gary King and some others, we had a lot of experience as filmmakers. So, we just went out and made a comedy, which I know a lot of people do, a lot of young filmmakers do. They go off and they say, well, I don't know a whole lot about building up tension and suspense and drama and everything else, so I'm just going to make them funny. I'm just going to put a bunch of laughs in it and my buddies, and we'll just joke and we'll make a movie. And so they do. And I think the thing that sets us apart from other young filmmakers is that Justin and Gary and myself and some of the other people involved had a lot of experience making all different kinds of movies. We made horror movies, we've worked on westerns, we've worked on dramas, we've worked on comedies, teen dramas, and we worked on the gamut of types of shows. And so we've been involved in all kinds of different productions, and we know how to make things go smoother, how to make things run faster. We have an idea of what things work, what things don't work. We've been around a lot of talented crew members that we knew that we could pull from to ask a favor from, to do a small show. And we actually had a lot more available to us than, I'd say, a lot of newer filmmakers. So to some degree, it's kind of like people with a little bit of experience making a first-time film, but because that's kind of where the budget range was. We didn't have any money. We're like, what are we going to do? But we actually had a little bit of, quite a bit of experience making it, and I think that's why it turned out so well, because we kind of knew how to make a movie, and we've done it so long that we didn't fall into the pitfalls of a lot of first-time filmmakers of making movies. Like, oh man, if I'd only known that sound was really important, or something like that. But it turned out really well, and we're very proud of it.
Well, the ending, I'm not going to say anything, but the ending was good too. I mean, how many, I gotta be careful how you say this, I don't want to give it away, but how many zombie movies ends like that? I mean, I know it's a comedy, but that's clever too.
Well, which ending are you referring to? There's sort of the ending of the movie, and then there's the ending with Gary King and the whole group at the very, very end.
That's, pardon me, the very, very end.
Okay.
That's good.
Well, that ending was something that Gary had. In fact, I wasn't even there for it. I wasn't even privy to it when Gary shot it. We had shot it he shot it a couple of different ways. The way it really was in the script, which is Wanda, our main character, she finds herself a new apprentice, and she's basically trying to figure out if this new apprentice is going to be the next person to inherit the magic belt. Right. Much like she did earlier in the film, and once you see the film you understand. But so in the script it calls for her to do something very ridiculous to her, and she says, snatch the pebble from my hand, and she snatches the pebble and realizes she had a handful of poo in her hand, and that was sort of the joke. It's like, okay, now you've done that, so now you're worthless, and so you're going to get the belt. But Gary had an idea, and I'm not even sure when Gary got this idea, but basically it involved himself and the entire crew, and it was, again, one of those self-reflexive moments where we're letting the audience know that, hey, we're filmmakers behind this, and the camera pulls back and you see the entire world of the filmmaking process.
Yeah.
And it was really extremely well done, given that the only two people in the scene that were actually actors were the two actors at the very beginning of that part of the scene. And then when it pulls back, I mean, you've got Grip standing there, you've got the DP, the real DP was there, you've got our art department, art director was actually playing hair and makeup, so she jumps in the frame. Our assistant director's there, he's got a few lines, and and then of course Gary comes in and he's talking with the cast members. But it's very well done. It was incredibly choreographed, given that it was done on the fly, and I mean, it really, when he showed it to me for the first time, and that was the rough cut, he says, here, this is something that we did, I'm not sure if you'll like it, but, I just want you to check it out. And I saw it, and I was like, this has got to be the most brilliant ending of a movie ever. It's just fantastic, and there's no way that I would cut that. There's no way you can cut that,
Nope.
Even as a writer who, you always look and say, gosh, everything I wrote on the page has to be, movie gold, and I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to shoot it exactly as it's written on the page. Many times we do that. I know I do it myself, and you always want to see your words come out on the screen. But then, every once in a while, there's changes. Either an actor will change up a line, or the director will change up the scene here or there, or the DP will shoot it a little differently than you thought in your head, and it's like, wow, that was way better than I ever thought. And those are the kind of things when you're making a movie that you live for, is the magic that happens while you're making the movie. Because the production of a movie is much, much shorter than the entire scope of making a movie. We started this Death of the Dead, we began shooting it back in November of 2009, and it's just now being released here almost a year later. And before that, months went into the writing process and pre-production, so we only really shot for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks of production, you look for little gems that are going to make the movie special, and that was one of them.
Yeah, and Christina Rose is a special person, too. I met her, as you know, I met her. She's a sweet girl.
She is a very talented actress, and she brought so much life to that character, more than we could have expected. Again, when we went in to make this, our expectation levels were very, very low, which, I don't want anybody to, that was involved in the movie to take offense to that. We did realize that we didn't have a lot of money. We're like, okay, we're probably not going to get great acting, we're probably not going to get great cinematography, we're probably going to have the greatest costumes or the greatest props or the greatest locations, because we just don't have any money for anything. The only thing we could really hope for is maybe having a decent meal on set. But outside of that, it was like, I don't even know what we're going to get here. And we auditioned a few actresses for the role, and she did a video audition for us, and actually, was actually doing the moves, and she had actually added a few of her special moves for that character, what she thought that character would do in terms of splits, and kind of dressed the part a little bit, and gave us an idea of what we could expect if we cast her. And it was really a tough decision, because there were some other girls that had auditioned that were very talented as well. And at the end of the day, we kind of sat down and went, maybe we should offer this role to Christina and just cross our fingers, because at the time nobody knew. We didn't know who she was, and we were not sure, what, can she do it? Is she going to be, is this going to be a mess? What's going to happen? But again, we were just like, let's just hope we get something halfway decent out of it. And she got there and really turned the two different characters, the nerdy Wanda and, the badass Wanda, were very distinct characters, and she played them very, very different. And I think her nonverbal reactions are probably the most, where the most talent comes through in her, because it's not the things that she says and does, it's like the things that she doesn't say, and just the little looks and stuff that really make her performance very special, at least for me.
Yes.
And I don't know what the audience thinks, but that's that to me is a distinction between a very novice actor and someone who I would consider a professional. And I think she's a professional.
Yes, I agree. Because she played two parts, and she did them both good. But the nerdy part that she played it so well. I mean, I can't say any more, but there's a lot of things that was done in that movie that was she done it very well, very well.
She was she has a background in dancing, and so I think picking up the martial arts part of it was easier for her, when we were casting, that was part of the requirement. We wanted somebody who had a background in martial arts. One girl that we auditioned had a stunt background, and she was very good at martial arts, and she had a dance background, so we felt comfortable that she was flexible enough and could pick up, the martial arts part of it as if she was choreographing a dance routine. And so that was why we felt comfortable with her in the role. But she did a fantastic job, and a lot of the stuff that she brought to the table were, things that were not on the page of the script, the things that she added. There's like kicks. There's a kick that happens in the movie. There's a couple of kicks. One is she jumps up and she does a double leg kick on two of the zombies, which is really cool, and I think you can see that in the trailer. And then there's another kick, which happens really fast on camera, that you almost miss, is where she's kicking she's facing the zombie, but she kicks behind her. Her leg goes up behind her back, completely over her head, and kicks the zombie. And there's another one that she does where she's standing again face to face with the zombie. She does a backflip, kicks the zombie under the chin, and then does a backflip over, and her legs slam down on the top of the head of another zombie who's behind her. So a lot of these different moves were things that she had brought to the table, which were not scripted. It was like, I think I can do this, or I can do this, and Gary's like, that's pretty cool, let's do it.
Yeah, she did a remarkable job.
Yeah.
And a couple of the other girls that was in the movie that didn't like her. There's some pretty, there's a gross scene, and I ain't talking zombie or blood either, but I'm not going to mention that, but I'll let the people watch it, and they're going to laugh their asses off when they see it.
Yeah.
Now go ahead. I'm sorry.
The movie, you have just to kind of give people an idea of what it is. Again, it's very over the top slapstick silly comedy. There's, if you're not comfortable with fart jokes and dick jokes and things like that, this probably isn't the movie for you. But if movies like Airplane and Scary Movie and Naked Gun, if movies like that you find funny, then you'll find this funny too.
Yep. The other character, I'm trying to remember her name now. I am bad in names lately. The one that helps her at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that was her character name was. She never really calls her by a name. She just calls her Freshman. Yeah. So that's the character's name in there. We've done that on a few movies where we don't ever give the character name, like in Dismal, the character's name for the big bad guy was Idiot. It's because everybody calls him, an idiot throughout the movie, and that was his name, Idiot. So every time we referred to him, he was Idiot. And in this movie, she's just a freshman. They just keep referring to her as, freshman or the freshman or whatever. So that was her name.
Yeah, she's cool. She's cool in that movie.
And there's names like, Master Sensei and Evil Sensei and Ghetto Sensei. There's all these very fun names in the movie that refer to the characters. But she did a fantastic job. Megan did a fantastic job as a freshman.
Yes, I liked her a lot. And as a matter of fact, I was talking to her a couple of days ago on Facebook, back and forth a little bit. She's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. And that's the first time I ever worked with her. I knew of her from Central Ohio local film scene, and she was in a movie I went and played at Sundance, and that was like the first time I really she kind of caught my eye in terms of having someone in Central Ohio being part of something bigger, a bigger movie that I played, and I was like, wow, this girl's got talent. And I saw a couple of other shorts that she had done, and when the role of the freshman came up, I just contacted her. I said, hey, I've got a role that you might be interested in. and her appearance had changed over the years since when I first saw her in the movie Speak, which went and played at Sundance, but it fit. You know, she was kind of she's kind of got into like sort of the band sort of image with colored hair and piercings and tattoos and things like that. But it kind of fit with the character being a little bit of an outcast and being picked on by sort of the cool, popular girls that were the cheerleaders. And so, we weren't put off by that, even though she told me, hey, I look a little different than when you first saw me. I was like, yeah, that's okay.
Right, Megan Pillar. Yep.
Yep.
Now, Michael Blaustein. Now, he played a good role in that movie, too.
Yeah, Michael actually will be in... Michael did such a great job, and he was so funny that we cast him in a movie that we have already produced. It's now in post-production called Attack of the Alien Jelly Monsters from the Depths of Uranus, where he played a space cop, a space pilot. But he did such a great job for us in that role of Donnie. He was the arch enemy of the nerdy Wanda. He's like the leader of the cool kids, and that role basically came out of the Johnny character who was in the Karate Kid, and that same type of character. He's the most popular kid. He's got all the cool he's got the cool girlfriend. He's the champion of the karate tournament, and Wanda is his nemesis, so to speak. Even though she can't fight to save her life, and no one likes her, and it's a little bit different play on it. But that was very, very fun. And having him on set was a lot of fun. He brought a lot to it as well. I mean, little nuances to the character that people, it's not really pointed out, but it's there. It's like all these different layers. If you watch him in the tournament, he's got one pants leg rolled up as if like some sort of cool style that he did, and he decided he wanted to part his hair in the middle and pull it down because that was, it made him look like not cool, but he was trying to be cool, so it was another little level that he had added. He did some things with the ad-lib in the karate dojo that were very funny. When they all break to go and spar, he jumps up and goes, "I'm Black Ranger," and that was one of the little things that he added in. It was very, very funny. So it was having people like Michael and Christina and some of the other actors that were involved in the movie. They were not only allowed to bring those things to the table, but they were encouraged to bring those things to the table, and they were very, very funny. So people will just continually, reinvent the character on a daily basis. I think this would be fun. Let me try this. What do we do this? And it wasn't like just reading lines from the script and that was it. It was much more than that.
Well, there's one scene that's in the trailer, so I can mention it. Sensei says to her, "Well, I got one more plan. I got one more thing." She goes, "What's that, Sensei?" "Well, if you think you're going to lose, run like hell."
I'm like, all right. That scene was set up again with some references to the Karate Kid, and if you watch the full scene of that outside the trailer, she tries to do the demonstration that he just did, the fancy routine and jumping off, flipping off the walls, and she messes up miserably. And so she says, "Master, isn't there like one special move that I can use?" Because if you remember in the Karate Kid, when he was just about down and out, he pulled out the crane move and he wins the tournament. So she says, "Isn't there one move that I can do that will defeat my enemy?" And she pulls up the crane stance, and right when he does it, he looks at her and he goes, "Don't be ridiculous. That would never work." And then she's feeling very depressed that there's nothing she can do to ever win. And he goes, "You know what? There is one move." And she comes and she's like very attentive and she's listening to him. He goes, "Right at the moment when all hope is lost and you have nothing else to do." And she's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Run like hell." So, and that's exactly what she does in the tournament. She runs like hell.
Yeah, that's good. Do you want to talk about the new one for next year?
Yeah, we can certainly talk about the new one. We have another movie that we just shot. Something about the strange stuff has sort of hit a nerve with us that we really enjoy the process of making them, and we feel like, especially now, The fans have connected with it, and we already plan to make a second movie after Death of the Dead, which we are doing a sci-fi comedy called Attack of the Alien Jelly Monsters from the Depths of Uranus. And it is kind of like a Star Trek meets The Blob meets My Name is Earl type of thing, where these space cops going after these jelly alien creatures. They track them through the galaxy, and they jettison to Earth, and they end up landing inside of a trailer park where they meet up with these sort of rednecky kind of characters who basically show them what life on Earth is like, and it includes a lot of redneck, typical or stereotypical redneck events: mud bogging, noodling, which is catching catfish with your hands, and lots of drinking alcohol, going to the bar, that kind of stuff. So they kind of get a little bit of intergalactic culture through these two redneck guys, and then they find out that the alien monsters have also jettisoned to Earth, and they're going to basically take over the planet if they don't stop them. So then you have to come up with a plan, and they get help from the two rednecks that help them defeat the enemy.
No,
so it's a lot of fun.
No, you won't know exactly which horrifying it's going to be at, right? I mean, as far as Gettysburg or wherever, you won't know until later on?
The last 3 years that they've had horrifying, they've had it in a different place. We had it at Hunt Valley. They had one in Baltimore, I believe, and they had one at the most recent one they had in Gettysburg. So all signs point that everybody really had a good time at Gettysburg, but then business is business, and that's the way it's always been. So depending on the relationship between Horrifying and the hotel will determine whether or not they go back there again this year, or they go back to one of the ones they had before. I really, really enjoyed the Gettysburg one. The theater was just a little bit smaller, but I think of the three premieres that we've done, I preferred either the first one, which was at near the University of Maryland, I believe, and the other one was this most recent one in Gettysburg, just because of the size of the screening rooms and the capacity and sort of the event itself. Those are my favorites. So I hope they go back, but wherever they go, we will follow, because we love all the fans. Everybody's been very supportive, so we'll head back there.
And you also got to remember too, I know it's a hassle when it's a small theater, but when it's a small theater like that, you can get more close relations with the fans that's watching the movie as well.
Right. And it does help to know that, when the movie sells out and people have to get turned away, they're thinking, oh my God, this must be a really good movie. And then it sort of builds the buzz about it a little bit. But we do enjoy having a really nice setting for the premiere. The first time we screen it, it's great to have it in a theater like we did at Gettysburg, as opposed to like a typical conference room type screening where you got just a big screen and people sitting in fold-up chairs and whatnot watching it. It's a much different experience when you can actually go in theater. And the movie was larger than life. I mean, it filled up the entire screen in that theater. It was amazingly huge and large and overwhelming when you were watching it, and the sound was booming and everybody was into it. It really was like a movie experience. I mean, you almost feel like, wow, this movie could probably play in a theater somewhere.
Yeah.
So we did.
Like I said to you before we went on air, we were there real early, before lines even got there, and we were talking to Christina Rose, and I got to meet you and Justin. Well, I met you and Justin earlier, but the people that work in the theater thought that I was part of the cast, so they sent me somewhere else. I said, no, we don't belong in here. And then they said, well, the line's back there. So lucky enough that we got in the first showing, because, like you said, the place was packed. And I'm glad for you guys for it being packed, because it was a big hit. The place was packed. I'm so glad for you guys.
Yeah, the only thing that could have benefited us from that screening was actually if our booth was, well, a couple things. If our booth was directly outside of the theater, which it was for the Dismal premiere, our booth was literally set up outside the theater. So as soon as the movie screened, it was like we had a mad rush of people to the table who wanted to autograph, sign, wanted to buy, or pick up posters or pictures or whatever. And so I think we would have benefited from that sort of setting. Or if the second screening wasn't immediately after, because we did have Gary and Christina wanted to see the second screening as well and see how that audience reacted to it. And they weren't back at the booth. So everybody cleared out of the first screening, went over to our booth, wanting to see Gary, wanting to see Christina and everybody else, and of course they were still sitting there watching the movie again. And I also think the people who were in the first screening, I think there were quite a few people who actually stayed for the second screening. They wanted to watch it again. So that's a good feeling, knowing that people would watch a movie twice in a row like that, especially when you've only got a weekend to cover everything that you want to do at a convention, and you paid X number of dollars to see all of the vendors and buy all the stuff that you want and see the other movies that were playing at the film festival and get autographs from all of the celebrities that were there and all of the things that were happening at the Horrifying convention. To be able to want to sit through another hour-and-a-half long movie, the same movie you just got done watching, I think speaks volumes for the way it was received by the crowd there at Horrifying, that people would could watch this movie over and over again, even give up part of their weekend, 3 hours of their weekend to sit there and watch it twice, as opposed to doing other things. So it was good. It was really good.
Well, other than talking to you guys up until the Horrifying weekend, I went to Horrifying to meet one actor and one actor only, and I was finally able to meet the guy, and that would be Bill Moseley. So I was glad and happy that I got a chance to finally meet Bill Moseley, because I think he's a phenomenal actor as well.
Yeah, being in the business and having worked on several movies and met quite a few really cool people, and having had people that were in my movies. In fact, we premiered Savage last year, which had Marty Cove, who ironically was in The Karate Kid, for the original one, and we had Lisa Wilcox, who was in Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5, and Tony Becker, and some other actors who have been around the business for a while. They were there last year when we premiered Savage, but at the same time, Margot Kidder was a special guest, and she was in my very first feature, which is Death Foretold, with her and Tom Savini and some other people. So it was kind of interesting to see those people who were there as guests, celebrity guests who I've worked with. So I don't get starstruck by seeing actors, but I had this conversation with my wife, who is not really a horror buff and doesn't get into it, but I asked her, I said, don't you feel it's kind of cool to be just in the presence of people that you've either seen their movies or are fans of their movies or whatever? She's like, maybe if it was, she's bigger into music, so if it was a music star, perhaps, but
right.
I personally find that I'm not starstruck, but I do think it's kind of cool. We rode the elevator, and George Romero and Adrienne Barbeau and some other people were there, and Billy Wirth was in the elevator with us several times, and it's just interesting to be next to those people when you watch their movies, right. When you're standing next to a Gary Busey and you're having a bit of a conversation with him, or having a drink at the bar with Christy Swanson or some of these other people. It's just like, well, I watched their movies, and when I was growing up, I was watching their movies, and it's a little bit surreal knowing that I'm just kind of sitting here and we're all normal people and we're just kind of having a drink or having dinner or whatever, and I find that cooler than having them sign something for me, because that seems to me very impersonal, whereas a personal experience is actually being able to have a normal conversation, an everyday type of conversation, and I'm not having to pay them $20 to do it. So those are the special moments for me. And I'd much rather be on set with an actor and be working with them in a professional relationship than to stand in line and try to get them to sign a DVD for me. But I understand why people do it, because most people don't have that opportunity. But at the same time, for me, it's much cooler just to be there. And I always think of it in terms of, like, I wonder if that person would actually work in a movie that I make.
Right, yeah.
Are they desperate enough yet?
Well, my experience is, like I said, I'm not starstruck either. Like I said, my main purpose to go there is to see you guys, of course, priority number one. But then I wanted to meet Bill Moseley But I'm going to tell you a quick story before I let you go. My father-in-law never was at a horror fest or horror find or anything before. And, and my mother-in-law passed away in December, so it's still a little raw to him yet. So I said, you know what, I'm going to take him along up with me. And we walked up to William Forsythe's table. Now, you got to hear this. Everybody has to hear this. My father-in-law says to him, "Why'd you kill them girls for?" And William looked at him like, "What?" And my father-in-law pointed at the Devil's Reject at the picture, right? He goes, "Oh," right. He goes, "Those bitches deserved." He goes, "Those bitches deserved it. They're serial killers." And
right.
Those two had the most coolest conversation back and forth for a longest while. It was so neat. My father-in-law had a ball with that. So.
Yeah, that goes back to what I was saying with just having those little personal moments with people where you're having. It seems once you actually get to meet them, most times those people are very down to earth and really have interesting conversations to have. I mean, working with people like Marty Cove and Margot Carey, Tom Savini stuff. I mean, I've had dinner with these people, and we've hung out, and you get to hear a lot more than just their character in the movie. You really get to hear a little bit more about them, and that's the interesting part is like their lives. I mean, calling Margot when she's watching the grandkids in her place in Montana, or talking to Tom Savini like what are you doing to stay in shape? I mean, he's over 60 years old now, and he looks phenomenal. And he tells me his whole diet and how he drinks a gallon of water a day, and he does this and does that. And I mean, it's just interesting to have those types of conversations rather than saying when you were playing Sex Machine in it's like those kinds of things don't they don't really mean as much for me. But knowing that they're just real people that have an interest in having conversations just like everybody else, and quite frankly, they do enough of these conventions, they probably get tired of talking about the characters all the time. They just want to talk up to somebody and just say, I'm just a regular guy. I like to, I still peel the crust off my bread, or whatever they do.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I started this podcast. It's going to be about a month soon. I've talked to a lot of celebrities on the phone, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the personal it's a personal lingo. I had some cool conversations with, Jack Harrison. I had some Bill Oberst Jr. A couple directors. It's different. Like you said. So we had a personal one-on-one conversation. That's so neat.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's what's cool about your show is that you're not. It's more about having those kinds of conversations and what you thought about it, rather than getting into all of the nuances of filmmaking and tell us what the budget was and tell us what it's more of like I really thought this was really cool, and then that conversation can expand from there. Like, oh yeah, we really enjoyed this, and we really like the people, and it's a lot more casual, I think, which is cool. That's the kind of interviews that I like. Most of the times when I do these, I ask people, like, well, send me your questions because I know you're going to ask me like one particular story. It's like, what was the funniest thing that happened on the set? It's like, oh man, you asked me too quick. I don't have a really clever answer for you. So, but your show is very casual, and I don't feel like I have to be clever and I have to have the greatest little story told, and you can just kind of talk, and it's cool. It's cool to hear have other people be able to hear that. And I'm even listening to interviews with Jack and Bill and Will Trippett recently. I was just like, oh, there's two guys on the phone talking,
That's my mumbo. I don't go with these fancy questions, how many times, it's just basically it's a phone conversation, and I'm different than a lot of podcasters. I don't do these 1-hour shows. I do my movie review, done, and if I get a chance for an interview, if someone wants me to interview them, they want to come on, fine, let's do it. I'm game. That's my game.
Right.
All right, Bill.
Well, that's good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I appreciate you coming on, and hopefully I'll get the chance to see you again. So
absolutely. We'll be there next year at Horrifying premiering another movie, and hopefully you'll come and check us out. And I appreciate all the work that you've done to promote Dismal and Savage and now Death of the Dead. And, I hope that the listeners are as loyal as our fans have been, and will go out there and check it out if you got Showtime. Dismal is premiering this month on Showtime. It's been running since the 2nd. I think the next showing is on the 11th, and you might have to TiVo it because they tend to come on pretty late. But also Savage should be coming out very soon. Dismal comes out on DVD on the 7th of December. You can pre-order on Amazon.com, and Death of the Dead hopefully will be, who knows, if it's a huge hit, it could be everywhere, or you can still pick up a copy of the DVD on the Strange Stuff Facebook fan page, and it helps us continue to make movies like this. So that's what we want to do.
And the listeners can go on to fearmakers.com. They can go in there and check out a bunch of information. That's where I got my info from. Please check it out. It's well informative. And Bo, thanks again for having this chat, and I'll catch you on the Facebook.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, take care, Bo.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
A legend 100 years old. Over 2,000 sightings.
In the 70s, the sightings increased. Almost all of them were in forests that had just weathered fires.
All right, I'll tell you, these fires, they rile up the wildlife. Things like that happen. It tends to bring out some mighty unpleasant predators.
What the hell is that? Millions searching for evidence.
I'm serious. I need to see him alive. He's been around.
And one truth. Some things are better left undiscovered.
Must be the same crew that we lost contact with.
Yeah, well, you know what they say. Something goes wrong in Bear Valley, blame Bigfoot.